Hello, my name is Christian John L. Vistal, and the title of this blog is My Journey to Database Fundamentals. The purpose of this blog is to showcase the things that I have learned throughout this semester on the subject um, Database Fundamentals with the subject code IPC C201. First, let me show you my bucket list. Here are my bucket lists that I will show you that I will show the evidence of the things that I have learned. First of all on my bucket list is identify the database. Identify a database. Next would be data models. What are data models? Then the next would be walking you through the work environment, the database environment we use for our course. Then lastly would be the basic SQL commands. First, let's talk about first the identify database, which is the first and foremost of my database bucket list. Um, Before we go to database, let me determine first the difference between data and information. Data refers to unprocessed information, meaning it is the building blocks of the information. You cannot have information without having a data first. Without having a data. Next would be information. An information is a product of a data, of a processed data. Meaning this means that a data that is analyzed, processed, it will be called an information, and this information will be used for decision making that we have, or should I say this information will be termed as knowledge. Next, we're going to determine data. We determine the data, we're going to determine the data formats. There are three main data formats, which is the structured, unstructured, and metadata. The structured data refers to text-based information, text-based data, which could be consist of date, text, numbers, and unstructured data refers to multimedia, media types. For example, images, audio, videos, and documents. Last but not least, we have metadata. Metadata refers to data. It is about the data. It defines data. Meaning, what I'm referring to is about it is a data that refers or defines other data. Next, after I explain all about the data, then we're going to talk about database. But first and foremost, let me explain to you that database is not a table. What I mean is that a table is not a database. A database must consist of multiple tables for it to be called a database. A single table will not be called a database because it does not have the category to be called a database, because it is only have a single table, a single entity. A database is shared, integrated, and structured, that is stored in a collection, that is a collection of table. A data that is structured, meaning the data is shared by multiple people, maybe the user and the administrator, and structured, meaning arranged in a tables, and collection of data, since table are collection of multiple datas. First, before we go to data, let's first determine the hierarchy of those data. First, we start with the smallest unit of data, which is bit, the 0 or 1. Next, we have byte, that is composed of 8 bit, which is read by the machine and turn it into letters. Next would be the after that letters. Then we will have columns. A columns in database can be called in many different ways. It can be attributes or field. and this column or attribute are a group of characters that has specified meaning and used to define the stored data itself. And what are those stored data? Those are rows, and also row is called in many different names in database. Like for example, tuple and record. Um, the data contain that is inputted as a row or tuple, or should I say record, could be uh, name or the place or thing that is described, that is related to the column or attribute. Next we have database management system. A database management system, and its difference about database is that database management system have the programs and management structure plans in it. Database are just and database management system are software system that is used to create maintain a database. The next would be I think that I identify what is database is. Next we go to our next agenda, which is I forgot to mention, just an added fact. Table can be called in multiple names also, just like rows and columns. And tables can be called as relation, file. I think that are the some of the things that can be called as a table. Next we go on to the next for our agenda on or our bucket list is the data models. What are the database models? The database models uh, are representation of real-world data structures. It is used to present data structures and graphically. The purpose of this data model is to have an overview on what the database should look like. Um, we need to have first to create a data models before we go to create physical database. Because if we do not create a data models, then we won't have overview to what our data structure should look like. Data structure should be composed of multiple things like relations. There are like what kind of relation, what kind of schema, and others, and how they are connected. Those are the things that can be overview or can be seen with the use of data models. There are different types of data models, but I'm going to emphasize only exactly one, which is entity relation data model. But before we go on to the entity relation model, we're going to describe some concept under data models, which is entity, attribute, relationship, and constraint. So, what is an entity? Entity is a unique and distinct object used to collect data. An entity can be a place, a person, or an object. Example would be a person, some like um, a voter, a doctor, a policeman. Those are person and can be called an entity. Next would be attribute. Attribute are, as I said earlier, can be called columns. And this attribute is a characteristic of an entity. Meaning a characteristic of an entity is like age, name, anything that defines an entity or a person, place, or an object. An example would be me, a person, and my name. I have a name, I have an age, and I have a hair color, and those could be my attributes. Next would be relationship. Relationship is can only be expressed between two entities, and this relation can be different based on their cardinality. A relationship can be have one to many, one to one, or many to many. And also, in the database, we have different set of constraints. For example, we have domain constraints. In the domain constraints, wait, let me first describe the constraints. Constraints are the rules uh, or the restrictions that is applied to the database to retain its integrity. For example, if you when we create a database, we need to first initialize the column data types. If then we initialize the column data type with let's, for example, we have the column column name, last name. In the last name, we initialize the data type as a characters only. It only must accept a characters. So if we try to input a numbers, we violate a constraint. That is a sample of a constraint, and that constraint is called a domain constraint, where you violate the values, where you violate the data you entered violated the column type of the attribute. Another constraints that we have is key constraints, where we have multiple primary keys. Um, what are primary keys? Primary keys are used to uniquely identify a table or an entity. For example, voter. For example, employee. What uniquely describe an employee? Name? Not. No. An employee can have an employee name can be a name of others employee. Then our primary key for that is employee's ID. Then employee ID is only unique and only determines a particular employee. So that's the purpose of primary key. Let's go back to the key constraints. Since the rule must have that primary key must be unique, if we have another employee that has the same employee's ID as you have, then that will be a violation with the key constraints. I have explained these. I have already explained the data models and the concepts under it. Let me show you how the entity relationship model is all about. Entity relationship model is a data model, or ERD, entity relationship diagram, is a graphical presentation of data models. It is between entity and another entity. And they have different types of connectivity depending on its cardinality, which I said again, one to many and many to many. I will show you how to read a database, an ERD model. You see on the screen is an example of an new notation ERD. This new notation is between two entities, which is the customer and bank account. Customer, and if I read this relation, it will be the customer must have one or many must have many bank account. And then if we read it on reverse, from bank account to customers, then it will be bank account must have one customer. Then what I read is the relation of the first ERD model on the top. Now let's read the second ERD model, which is also between customer and bank account. If we read it from customer to bank account, then it will be customer may or may not have a bank account. Then if we read it back from bank account to customer, then it will be bank account must have one customer. That is their relation, and the cardinality would be optional to many, optional or mandatory, optional to many. Then this is a new notation ERD. Let me show you how to create a let me show you how to turn that model into how should I say this, old notation. This old notation is different. The new notation is uh, with my board, with my whiteboard, I'm going to show you how how to turn this new notation ERD model to an old notation. First, we have to let's try to convert the first ERD model to an old notation. First, um, the main column, the main entity will be main circles. Circles. These are both circles. Let me fix this. Then, these are two circles. They are connected relation, and their relation is represented by diamond. These are entity 1 and entity 2. This entity can be customer, and this entity which shall be the bank account. Here they are. The bank account and the customer and bank account. This is their relation. The diamond represents their relation. And it will be has. The customer has a bank account. Then, let's define their attributes. First, in the customer, we have the customer name as the primary key. The next, we have another attribute which is customer name. This is how you represent a primary key with an underline. And this is a single attribute. Then next we have the attribute of the bank account. The bank account has the attribute of account number as its primary key. Account number is primary key. Account currency. Which is a single attribute. And lastly would be account as is foreign key. Foreign keys represent foreign key is a primary key of another table, and a foreign key is represented by a broken line. This is a sample of an old notation. These two are the entities, and the diamond represent their relation. And these other circles that you see connected to an entity are its attributes. And let's put their cardinality, which is 1-to-1 and no 1-to-many option, and they are both mandatory. So here is the new notation, old notation. The customer must have many bank account. Must have one or too many bank account. Then from bank account must have one customer. This is the old notation. Let's create a new notation, another new notation example, and this time it will be between customer and this time it will be between voters and candidate. Here is a new entity. Here are two entities. These are voters and this is candidate. Candidate. Let's determine their relation. A vote voters vote many candidates. Many candidates. Then let's determine the relation between candidates to voters. So candidates must be voted by many voters. So their relationship is many to many. Let's determine their cardinality. Their type of cardinality. Is it mandatory or optional? Voters may or may not vote a candidate. So it is optional. Optional is represented by that circle, and a candidate may or may not have voters. May or may not be voted by a voter. So their relationship will be option. So the both relationship will be optional. So this is another example of a new notation. Now that I present you that I clearly understand the new data models, or should I say entity relationship models, then I'm going to show you what I learned uh, about the database I'm going to show you our database workspace and some SQL commands that I have known. So here is our work environment for our database. For our database environment, we have Oracle Apex. As you can see, it is in online. So this application is available online, and we can access it, and we can access our database online. First, first first before you see the main page of the Oracle Apex, you need to first create your account. As you can see, I have already have my account, but if you initialize it, you need to have your uh, you have to create your account. And if you after you create your account, you're going to see this this workspace or this main page. After this main page have the following tab. First, we have App Builder, SQL Workshop, Team Development, and Gallery. It also have the summary of all the activities done inside the Oracle Apex. So in App Builder, you can create an application or an interface above your database that you created in the Oracle Apex. So next we have the SQL Workshop, where you can create your database. You Then next we have Team Development. This is where when you use see it's online, then many people can access the account. So meaning with this team development, you can collaborate with many people to create a database. Then next we have Gallery. Here you can these have all uh, things you can download, such as tables or database, even interface or plugins that you can download through your are contained in this are in this Gallery tab. I am not very familiar with the other tab except SQL Workshop, because I have not really explored this workspace really well. So let's go with the SQL Workshop. If you enter with the SQL Workshop, then you're going to see the following tab, as well as the recent tables created or the recent command used. Then we have the following. We have the object browser, the SQL command, SQL script, utilities, and RESTful services. I'm not really, again, I said I'm not really familiar uh, with the other tab except object browser and SQL commands, because I have not really fully explored this workspace. Then let's go first the object browser. Here in object browser, you can click. This will show all the tables you have created. For example, if I click a table TV department, then it's going to show all the details about the table. For example, here in TB table, TB department table, we have the column name, data type, nullable, default, and primary key. You can see all the columns in the column name, each data type of each column name, and also if the status, if it is nullable or not. If you click data, you're going to see all your database, all your row details or informations that all the data that is inside the TB, all the data inside TB department table. Now we're going back again to the SQL workshop, and you can see the SQL command. If you click the SQL command, this tab, this is where you input your SQL codes. This is where you enter your queries, then run them. This part is dedicated for entering your SQL commands. Then if you click this button, run, it will the result or the data you retrieve will be displayed on this space. For example, if we try to use this command, select asterisk. Asterisk means all from, for example, TB underscore, the TB we're going to retrieve is department. So here is our first SQL query. We're going to run it. Here you can see all the data that the table TB department have. The column that TB department have is dep ID, dep name, and location. So we're going to clear our command first. Let's try another query. Let's create a table. Create table. Best table would be let's create table for candidates, for election candidate. Election underscore candidate. Here we have the query for creating election candidate. Then after that, we initialize the columns that the table election candidate have. Let's first create its primary key, because all the table we created must have a primary key. And since election candidate, so we choose candidate ID space. Remember to put a space every time you create a column, because it is very important. And if you forgot to put a space, then the column will not be recognized by the Apex Oracle, by the system. So after we initialize the name, we're going to put the its type, data type, table data type. So since candidate IDs consist of numbers, then we're going to choose number as its data type. Then we determine its the size. Let's try 8. After that, set this as a primary key. Here now we have the first table, the first column of the election candidate table. Now, if you want to create another column, then we need to put first a comma to separate them. Then initialize another column on another lane. The next would be candidate last name. Let's just initialize the table as last name, the column name to last name, and after that we initialize its data type again, which is characters. So we choose varchar with the size of since a last name can be long, so we're going to choose 25 the size. And after that, we're going to since we don't need to put another primary key, a table must only have one primary key, then we're going to put we initialize the table as if it's not null or if it's nullable or not. So we choose not null. Then if you want to create another column, then put another comma.
and initialize again the column. So the next would be first name. Then since it will also have the following details as the last name, following details as the last name, then we're just going to copy and paste it. Then we create another table or another column for the election candidate, which is position. Position. Since election, we have position, right? Position type. Then we're going to initialize the position as varchar, since it must also be a string or characters, consists of characters. We shall set this as not null. Here is our query. We have 4 columns of the table election candidate. We're going to run it. Then we're going to see if yes, we created the table. Um, the here is the label that indicate that we created the table. Let's clear the command. Then we're going to insert uh, details or data to inside the table. The first is insert into name of the table, which is election underscore candidate. Then we initialize the values or the data that will be inputted inside the table. We first need to initialize the number of the table, the primary key, which is the candidate ID. So we're going to enter the candidate ID as number, and this is the candidate ID 11111. Let's make sure that the length of this table, the length of this data is the same as the size of that we initialize with the column ID. We initialize the size of 8 for the column ID, so we're going to see if this is really 8 numbers. Yeah, here now we have 8. Then put a comma to separate them with the next column, which is last name. So we're going to put Vistal as the name, as the last name value. Oh, also, if you try to input a varchar, remember to put the single semicolon, quotation mark, single quotation mark, sorry. Then we're going to also input the name. For example, CJ, that's the name. Then separate it by a comma. Then the last column is the position. So we're going to the position is varchar again. So we need to use again a single quotation mark. Then, for example, the position would be president. Here is the first data. Then we're going to run it. Oh, I accidentally double click it. Sorry again. But we already have the data inputted inside the table. So let's check if we see the table using the command select asterisk from election underscore candidate. Let's run it again. Oh, here we see the first data that we entered. Let's clear the command. Let's try to input another data to the table. Insert table. Insert into, sorry. This is the command for inserting data to the table. Insert into table name, which is election underscore candidate. Then values, close open parenthesis. Then we're going to input the data or the data that we need to input. Remember, the first column is candidate ID. Then we're going to put the candidate ID, and the size of it is 8. So the numbers we're going to input should be 8. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This is our ID, candidate ID, one. Then separate it. Then we're going to have the name, the last name of the candidate. For example, La La Diao, comma, another name, which is the last name. Put Chris. Chris. Separate it with the comma to another. This column will be the position. The position of the candidate would be vice president. President. If we run the command, here is here it will display this result where it indicates that you have already inserted one row to the table. Then we're going to have select again to see if we really did input the table or the data to the table. Let's run it. Then it will return all the table. Oh, here we have our table. These are the data inside the election candidate table. Now we're going to use another query, which is update, a part of data manipulation language of SQL. So we're going to use update query. Let me just erase this, since here is the query for the command to use for updating the election. Update a table or update a data inside the table inside a table, which is election candidate. Then we're going to have what are we going to change? Let's change the name, the first name of candidate of the first name of the candidate that have the first name Chris. Then we're going to select input the column, which is first name. Let's change the first name to what's the right? Let's change. Don't forget, if you want to change the value of your data, don't forget to put the command set. Instead of Chris, we're going to have Christian. Christian. Here is the first name. Then, in order for that update to know which exact row we're going to change the first name, we need to determine where the clause where the first name is Chris. So let's input Chris. Let's run it, and then here you can see now that there we have the rows. The result that it indicates that you have a single row that is updated. So let's check if we really did update the data inside the table. Select a series from election underscore candidate. Run. Here you see the second. We do not see the first name Chris again. Instead, we have Christian as the first name of the data of the second row. Now let's try to delete data. The code for deleting data is delete from election table, where we need to specify which table, which data we're going to delete, because if we did not, then we're going to delete the whole table. Where let's delete the second, the row that the data that have the position vice president. So where position is equal to vice president. If we click it, if we run this query, then we're going to here we have this result display, which indicates that you delete a row, the row you selected. Then let's see again if we really delete it through the use of select statement. Select asterisk from election table. Let's run this query. Here, now this is now the table election candidate only have one data, which is candidate ID, last name, first name, and position. I think I'm going to end my presentation, where I apply what I have learned throughout the whole semester. These are only just the some of the things that I am more familiarized. Some of the queries I know, but I'm going to make make this video short. So I'm not going to use all the SQL commands that I know. Of course, I know the other SQL command, for example, the alter, which you can add a table. We also have the natural join, where you join two tabs. And also we have others SQL command, for example, the max, count, sum, average, where you can control, where it will display the a particular column data. So I'm gonna end this presentation.
So I have fulfilled all 4 of my bucket list. Now I'm going to end this vlog by expressing my appreciation with our instructor in Database Fundamental, Mrs. Gatpandan. Thank you for all your efforts that you have for us. I know that we have some shortcomings as a class, but we also appreciate all your strictness with us. I know that we are a bit grade conscious, but I know that you also like it, and we are also thankful that you are strict, because with you because your strictness really help us grow, and I thank you for that. This will be the end of my vlog. Thank you for watching.